Ben over at PressTube has proudly served plenty of videos up in the past, particularly casting videos, but this one, special significance, especially if you love a late night snack. The golden arches will be preserved in brass, those bullet casings being melted down, the red casting sand now being pressed down around them, and he's doing this one a different way, not closing the actual mold in this case, leaving it open top so you can watch that actual molten brass follow the grooves, find its way into that space, and experience those golden arches like never before. The space cleared out, that last little bit of sand removed. It's time to check on that molten brass. Looks just about ready. Only the slag or impurities need to be removed now. Dumped off to the side, it's time to pour. In it goes, and just check that out. McDonald's might need to reconsider their current branding. That looks awesome. The flaming arches, now cooled down. Just look at all that scorched sand. Dropped into a bucket of cold water. It instantly boils. That's just how hot that cooling brass is. Unfortunately, when it comes to the open mold method, it tends to lead to more work. A little more grinding and sanding to clean the whole thing up. A few different types of sanders needed as well. On the flat surface, the belt sander is fine. Here, something more refined required. Those edges smoothing up nicely though. But if you get a close look at them, you can still see those fine grooves now being sanded away with a finer grit. That's looking much more like it. And in that classic sense, that giant yellow M was always hoisted way up in the air, letting you know from a distance you're not far away. So these arches are going to be mounted on two lovely pins. One and the other installed. Now it's time to work on what they'll be mounted to. A wooden plank taken, it'll be cleaned up all the way around the edges, and the router being used to carve a groove around the outside. A short distance from the edge of the board, trying to keep it clean so you can follow along. Now that the groove is done, it's time for that LED strip that's going to light up the whole board. Wound around carefully, pressed up against that outside wall. And to make sure the lights aren't too individually distinct, some cloudy epoxy resin is mixed up to help disperse the light. It's now poured down and you can watch it travel, slowly making its way around and into each side of the groove. There it goes. Now time to cover the whole thing with a coat of clear epoxy. And that can only mean one thing. Time to sand down and then polish that finished hardened epoxy. And then finally, onto the assembly phase. A few different grits of sandpaper used to get it down to the finest dust. The tiniest little grooves that in the end will be cleaned up and polished. Now to buff that polish in. And it always looks a little cloudy at first, but after a few rounds and a few coats, it will be crystal clear. And you'll be able to see that lovely wood grain perfectly. It'll also help for that LED light to travel. Now to mount the M. 2 holes drilled to mount the logo on those 8mm pins. The dust blown away, the dust is settled, and so has that lovely pair of brass arches. Fixed into place, there's only one thing left to do, and that's have a McDonald's party. Someone get the lights. Thanks, Ben. Now, who's making the order? Or who's making the run? Thumbs up is right.